Then
Mhm.
we go through those other steps. I mean, it's literally those 4 pillars. Every
Mhm.
business that I look at and analyze, I'm
Mhm.
like, that's the foundation. And then once you have those in place, it's just a matter of repeating it.
Sailynn Doyle is a business strategist who helps women owners build businesses that don't depend on them. At 28, she opened her first business and scaled it to $1 million in just 3 years. But behind the scenes, she was working 80 hours or more during the week and carrying the weight of every decision. It looked successful, but it wasn't sustainable. Instead of chasing more revenue, Sailynn rebuilt the foundation. Through the structure, systems, and strategic design, she more than tripled revenue, reduced her work weeks to 16 hours, generated over $17 million in total revenue, and exited before the age of 40. That experience reshaped her philosophy. Scale should create freedom, not more work. Today, Sailynn works with women who want to scale, step away, start something new, or sell and are ready to redesign them so growth no longer depends on them. She doesn't teach hustle or marketing tactics. She teaches scalable design. Through structure, systems, and strategic clarity, she helps service based businesses reduce owner dependency and build businesses that generate revenue without consuming their lives. Hi, Sailynn. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Samantha. I'm so happy to be here.
Hmm. So I want to dive right in because, you are teaching the stuff that I am living and breathing right now in terms of how to build a business that scales into the, 6, 7, maybe even 8 figures with revenue, but also doesn't consume all your time and energy so that we can do the things that also, give us purpose and meaning, like spending time with our families or traveling or things like that. So I wanted to start with your journey and how you kind of started out on this and then discovered the success pattern or the path to success for building something like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So picture a warm, sunny Sunday back in August of 2006. I was sitting on my boyfriend's boat, and the girl next to me said, "What do you want to do?" And out of my mouth came, "Start my own business." I think she meant for like dinner or drink later, but that's what came out. And then what happened was I walked into the office. I was working a job Monday morning, and in my inbox was an email that said, "Have you ever thought of starting your own business?" And I was like, "Oh, it's meant to be, right?"
Yeah.
And what that was actually a franchise consulting company.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience helped me. They asked me so many questions, do you want this? Do you want this? And so I looked at everything from smoothie shops to sub shops to dog training, closet design, curtains, like everything. And nothing really hit home for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then around Thanksgiving, same year, my boyfriend's father unexpectedly passed away at the age of 57. And it really woke me up. And it said, like, if you want to do this, like, life is short, like, let's do it. And universe sent me another message. A woman came into my office that was looking to work with the business I was working for, and she owned a franchise. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, is this a franchise?" And she said, "Yes." And 2 days before the end of the year, I signed on the line and bought a neighboring territory.
Wow.
So that's how I got into it. I opened in May of 2007 and basically did exactly what my parents told me to brainwashed me and basically to do. If you work hard, you will be successful. And
Uh-huh.
my franchisor just kept reiterating that, right? Like, I'm so stressed out. Like, what should I do? Like, just work a little bit harder. Things will get better, right? That's what I heard for 3 years.
Mhm.
And so when that's what you've been programmed, brainwashed, and that's all you know, then that's what you do. And so fast forward 3 years, it's 2010, 9 a.m., a weekday morning. I'm sitting in my car, sobbing my eyes out because I had just covered another caregiver shift. I had bought a senior home care franchise. I had just
Mhm.
covered another caregiver shift. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I had been working 80-hour weeks for 3
Mhm.
years and I was exhausted, right?
Mhm.
I was completely and utterly exhausted. And so that was truly what I call my draw a line in the sand moment where
Mhm.
I declared something had to change. Now, don't get me wrong. I had said, like, oh, I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to fix this and I'm going to fix that for the past 3 years. But when we got busy or overwhelmed or whatever, I just eked back to my old ways, right? It was
Mhm.
like, oh, it's easier to fix this myself. It's easier, to just deal with it later. But that moment sitting in that car, I was in a suit and heels. I had just covered a shift for 3 hours. It was 9 a.m. I still had another 10 hours of work of mine that I had to do. I was like, that's it. I'm done. If something
Mhm.
doesn't change and this is what success is, I don't know what's for me.
Mhm.
And so that really was such a pivotal moment for me. And I spent the next 2 years redesigning that business. And that's when I learned everything that I basically teach today.
Mhm. So what did that look like for you? Like, because I think it's one thing to say, I'm going to redesign this business, but it's another thing to actually put that process in place. Because it's such a big concept. I'm going to redesign this business so that I can step away and let it run, while I'm on vacation and I don't have to worry. But how do you actually, like, it's all about systems at the end of the day. How do you set up the systems and how do you know what systems to set up so that you actually can take that step back?
Yeah. So, I obviously have been doing it myself for 3 years. And that morning, when, after I covered that shift, I did my normal thing I had been doing for weeks. I went to my parents' house, took a shower, and then got ready for the rest of my day. And my mom saw how distressed I was. And she said, I really think you should meet with a family friend who's a coach. And I was like, but I did it. And so I put it on my calendar as a private meeting. The
Mhm.
day came, I skulked out the back of the office, hoping no one would ask me where I was going, went
Uh-huh.
down the plaza to this, like, shady diner and had this meeting, and I vomited all of my problems on him, and he basically summed up exactly what you just said. Like, "You have no systems in your business. That's your biggest problem." And I
Mhm.
was like, "How can all of the things that I just told you be solved in one word?" Right? Like,
Mhm.
it didn't make sense to me because I was thinking, like, I already had systems. And so, really defeated, I went back to the office, and later that week, one of my team members asked me a question. And of course, I answered it because he also told me I was a teller. They would ask a question and I would tell them what to do. And felt like the 10th time she had asked me that question that, like, month. And instead of sticking like a fork in my eye, I answered her. And then
Mhm.
that night at 5 o'clock, when things finally got quiet, I pulled out that system that I had created for her. And I looked at it and I realized that it was pretty much crap.
Mhm.
Right? It was missing steps, it was out of date, it was, you know what I mean, just not really a system, and so I spent
Mhm.
60 minutes that night redesigning that system,
Mhm.
and I was pretty darn proud of it,
Mhm.
and the next morning, I went into the office and I grabbed the team member and I was like, "Can I chat with you for 30 minutes?" And I went over 3 things with her during that 30 minutes. She asked me one question, updated the system, I gave it to her and was like, "Here you go," and she went on her way. And a
Mhm.
couple weeks later, I said to myself, "Wow, she hasn't asked me that question," right?
Mhm.
And I walk into her office and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going with that system?" And she was like, "Fabulous." And she went back to
Mhm.
work. My
Mhm.
head was literally like, I'm going to explode because in 60 minutes of designing, 30 of, handing it off to her, I had literally freed myself from that task. And I never answered that question again for the next 7 years I owned that business. And
Mhm.
so my mind thought, what's next? Right?
Mhm.
But it was exactly what you said. Where do I start? And so over the next 2 years, I had a lot more tears, a lot more, you know what I mean, episodes of self-doubt and feeling
Mhm.
alone because I didn't get that coach to help me. And so I
Mhm.
was just trying to figure it out again myself. And that's where I see so many women go wrong
Mhm.
is we have it ingrained in us to DIY everything, right?
Mhm.
Don't invest in yourself. Try and figure it out. You know, we're prided for multitasking, like all of these different things. And that's working against us in business, this
Mhm.
programming we receive as women. And so, what I really realized, right, fast forward 10 years, is that when I started coaching, that everything I had done during those 2 years came down to 4 core pillars. And
Mhm.
those 4 core pillars need to be done in a certain order, right? Because it's just like you said, like, how do you know what to do first? What, you know what I mean? What's going to work? What's going to get me the biggest bang for my buck kind of deal. And so those 4 core pillars that I developed when I broke down everything I did for that success was a actual system, right? So there's a system to
Mhm.
create systems, right?
Mhm.
And when you follow those, that's when you get that quicker, better, faster results that I got, not 2 whole
Mhm.
years feeling alone. A lot of my clients, depending upon where they are getting those results in 90 days to a year. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So, why don't you walk us through what those 4 core pillars are for the
Okay, great.
system, the first system within the system?
Yeah, the system and of course there's a system to create a system, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so here's what I realized about the 4 core pillars. So the 4 core pillars, not I thought I was like, "Oh, this is what I did." But when I did more
Mhm.
research, every single successful business utilizes these 4 core pillars. Think Amazon,
Mhm.
Apple, Airbnb, all big business utilize them. Mine does, and every other business should too, right?
Mhm.
They're business foundation. So the first one is structure.
Mhm.
This starts with what do you want? Because if we don't have clarity around what you want, you will build a business that you hate, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like that Alice in Wonderland quote where Alice asks the Cheshire cat, which way should I go? And the cat
Mhm.
says, well, what do you want? And she says, I don't care. And the cat says, then it doesn't matter which way you go. So if we don't know what we want, we don't know which steps to take, right?
Mhm.
So that's number one in structure. Number two in structure is you have to be unique, right? In this
Mhm.
day and age, you have to be the rainbow sprinkles in a sea of vanilla ice cream
Mhm.
because there are a million business coaches, there are a million service providers out there, and you have to stand out. And in order to attract your dream ideal client, you have to speak to them. So
Mhm.
that is piece number two. And then the third piece of the structure pillar, which most women have but don't realize it, and it's just not packaged right, is your signature framework and services, right? So when I work with a new woman in business, they usually don't have something that's signature to them, or they have a laundry list of things that they sell. And it's like literally that, person on the street in New York that has the trench coat with, do you want watches or iPads or this or that or whatever, right? Like, I got what
Sure.
you want.
Yeah.
And what it basically does is it dilutes not only their focus, but what they're known for. And then people don't know whether they're the right person to help them. So that
Mhm.
structure pillar has those three things. The second pillar is systems. And of
Mhm.
course, there is a system to create a system.
Mhm.
And we utilize my 3-step freedom systems formula: design, refine, and integrate, which is basically creating a system with the end goal in mind to delegate
Mhm.
it. And so this is really systems are truly what set you free if you set them up right. And if
Mhm.
you're setting them up in the right order, right? So
Mhm.
many women are like, oh, let me create SOPs. Well, I hate to tell you, but if you just create an SOP, all you have is a document, right?
Mhm.
And I am sure there are a gazillion documents sitting on women's computers that aren't being utilized. And
Mhm.
so not only are we creating systems, but we're creating a systems culture within
Mhm.
businesses.
Mhm.
That's key. So
Mhm.
that's pillar 2. Pillar 3 is your support team.
Mhm.
So, whether you're a solopreneur right now or whether you already have a team, you cannot scale as big as you want alone. Even with AI and technology and
Mhm.
everything, you're going to need some additional humans. And so, what we need to do is the reason most people hired someone and it doesn't work out is because they missed pillar 1 and pillar 2 to set them up for success, right? It's
Mhm.
buildable. Pillar 3 is where we recruit, hire, and onboard. We use my 3-part hiring framework that my
Mhm.
HR team in my franchise, we screened over 15,000 applicants, did over 7,000 interviews, hired thousands of people. These women put together a hiring framework that basically allows you to find top talent and
Mhm.
recruit and attract that top talent and then
Mhm.
retain them.
Mhm.
And then that brings it all together to pillar 4, which is streamline technology, tools, and automation. So in this day and age, you could literally sign up for like 10 pieces of technology every single day and keep
Mhm.
doing that forever. And what I see is women in business are either have like their technology afraid. So they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure, what should I spend my money on here, there, wherever. So doing way too much manually, which is costing their, productivity and efficiency and profitability to be sky high.
Mhm.
Or they have so much tech that they literally have, 3 calendars. I worked with a woman and she was like, I have 3 calendar booking softwares. And I'm like, well, which one are you using? And she's like, none of them, because she's so like overwhelmed with them. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is we have to build that like lean tech stack that is
Mhm.
important for you in your business. So
Mhm.
when you have those 4 core pillars built upon each other and they all come together, that's when your business has the foundation. If you think about your business as a house
Mhm.
structure, the first pillar is that concrete foundation, right? If it's crooked, if it's cracked, if it's wobbly, unstable,
Mhm.
unlevel, then the other, layers of your house, the other floors of your house that you build are going to be unstable.
Mhm.
And so those 4 things allow you to get that business house of yours in line and ready to scale. Make
Mhm.
sense?
Mhm. Yeah. So when you were putting this in place in your in your first business in this franchise that you were operating, like you said that you didn't have a coach, so you kind of just like were winging it. What, like, if I was a woman starting my own business, like, how would you suggest that we start the business from A to Z to make sure that we have that foundation from the get go?
Yep. So A to Z looks different for everyone,
Mhm.
obviously, depending upon the business and where they are, but it's exactly those 4 pillars, right? We
Mhm.
really start with what do you want? And I
Mhm.
hate to say this, but that might be one of the hardest questions in the whole program, right?
Mhm.
Because when you think about it, most of my clients are in like their 40s and 50s, and no one's asked us what we want for a very
Mm.
long time. When you're a
Mhm.
kid, right? Someone says to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Like, and they encourage you and they're like, oh, that's so cute and nice. Right. And it gets a
Mhm.
little bit less as we get to high school and college, but then it's like we graduate college and people stop asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so for some women, no one's asked them for 20, 30 years, what do you want?
Mhm.
And that's a really hard thing. So my overthinkers that I work with take this 10x and they try and think about it, down to the, tiny details. And then the women that are more pie in the sky, big
Mhm.
visionaries, they're so big that they don't know how to bring it down into like tangible.
Mhm.
And so it's so important to understand that because I know what I did is I said, when I declared on that boat on that, sunny Sunday in August that I wanted to start my own business, it was because I had had 5 jobs in 7 years due to 2 layoffs and a short term contract. So I was desperate to
Mhm.
reclaim control over like my time and money and freedom.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's gray, right? That's so vague. And so I built that $1 million business in 3 years, but I hated it.
Mhm.
And it wasn't what I envisioned. And that's why when I was sobbing in that car, I said to myself, like, if this is what success is, I'm not sure if it's for me
Mhm.
because that thing. So once we get that definition of success and what that is and what's like enough, right? Then
Mhm.
we go through those other steps. I mean, it's literally those 4 pillars. Every
Mhm.
business that I look at and analyze, I'm
Mhm.
like, that's the foundation. And then once you have those in place, it's just a matter of repeating it. That's what Z is. See,
Mhm.
women think that we need to constantly innovate, right? And do new things. What actually scales businesses? So once you go A to Z and everything's set up, it's about being consistent and
Mhm.
scaling what's working,
Mhm.
right? It's not trying the new shiny object every single week because you have FOMO or because, some salesperson tells you it's what you need. It's figuring out what works. It's going to help you build the life that you want and help you hit your success. And then just repeating it over and over and over. And the women that like to build the boring part of business are the ones that build the best businesses out there because they get comfortable doing the same things every single day. And
Mhm.
sure, once you get to a certain level where your business is optimized and systemized and you're sitting in that strategic leader role, you can really do what's in your zone of genius, whatever that is for you, like whatever you love and whatever you're good at. But someone else is doing those things
Mhm.
consistently every single day. And what I did essentially the last 5 years in business was fine tune my business into a well oiled money making machine where my team of 17 women and 150 in the field did the same thing every single day. And we only innovated when it was something that I thought from a strategic scaling perspective was going to get me closer to, my ultimate goal and increase our productivity or efficiency or profitability. If it was
Mhm.
just something shiny object, I knew where I was going and I could easily say no.
Mhm. Mhm. So you had just mentioned some numbers there in terms of the number of people that you have report or like are working for you. How you set it up? Because if you have 100 and some people reporting to you, that in itself is a job, So how have you set up the system so that you are getting the highlight reel versus having to dig in the weeds to deal with all 150 people or however many it is in your business?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question because this is something that I probably am a little controversial on, but I do not believe in having an owner and then like an operator or an integrator and then everyone else. And here's why. I was part of a franchise system and that's what they taught. So we had thousands of offices across the country, across the
Mhm.
world, right?
Mhm.
And what I saw way too often was this owner would be burned out. And so then they would hire an operator, an integrator, general manager, whatever you want to call them, CEO basically, and that person would take on the overwhelm that the owner had, right? And the owner would start to feel free and they would start living their life again. And everything was rainbows and unicorns. And then that CEO would basically get a better job or they would get burnout or whatever and they would leave. And what would happen is that owner would go from, living their best life, doing what they love, they're doing in their zone of genius and be pulled right back into the business. And
Mhm.
now they didn't know exactly what exactly was been going on and so their business was all them again. They were struggling and they were miserable. Right.
Mhm.
And so when I started scaling, I was like, I'm not doing that model. Most business coaches, organizations, everything will teach you to do that model. And
Mhm.
I don't think it allows you to support the life that you truly want which is essentially, sure, maybe it's a little bit more profitable to have one person, but for me, I had three. I had
Mhm.
three directors. So I had a director of client care who handled everything to do with clients. I
Mhm.
had a director of human resources who handled those 150 people in the field, and she had people under her. And then I had a director of finance who handled everything to do with money. And so what happened is they became their own little team, right?
Mhm.
So I would do a weekly meeting with them and then we would do strategy meetings. But if one of them was on vacation or taking a day off or had to leave early, or if one of them left, the other two would help them out. So I
Mhm.
was never pulled back in. And this is what allowed me to continue living my epic life and working 16 hours a week because those three, I had built this team to work together and cover for each other. When you
Mhm.
have just you and then a CEO and then a team, when that CEO leaves, guess
Mhm.
who's doing everything? You.
Mhm.
And the majority, I mean, I don't see many people, we don't live in that world. Think about our parents' world, right? Where people, you know, went to go get their first job and stayed in it for 40 years. That doesn't happen anymore. People
Mhm.
change jobs quickly. They're looking for the next promotion, more money, more experience, whatever it is. And so I saw way too many owners pull back in when they thought everything was great because that person left. And so
Mhm.
the model I teach is really you and then whatever it is, another layer, right? That's
Mhm.
not just one person. And then whatever you need under that to manage your team if you truly want to work your business in part time hours.
Mhm. Mhm. So how does that work then for somebody like who's fresh off the boat and like they are starting their business and they know nothing and they're pre-revenue, right? So when you're pre-revenue, it can be really scary to start thinking about, oh, I have to pay a salary and whatever that salary is, maybe it's 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, whatever the salary is, right, for that position. How do you go in from a position of being pre-revenue to being able to hire those team members? Are you doing something fractional at the beginning or are you hiring contractors? I know that a lot of people are outsourcing VAs to different companies in the Philippines, for example. Is like how does that work when you are pre-revenue?
Yeah, another great question. So, this is another thing where I probably bucked the system in my franchise, and it was actually a lot of the secret to my success. So, I hired the majority of part time women in my office, right? So, a
Mhm.
lot of them were retirees and they were looking for, 10 hours a week, and they had a zone of genius. And
Mhm.
so what I realized is that I could get an expert in every spot I needed in my business. So for instance, if I looked at my HR team, I had a full when I finally got to the director of HR under her, I had a part-time expert at hiring. I had a
Mhm.
part-time expert at interviewing. I had a part-time expert trainer. I had a
Mhm.
part-time expert admin, right? And so I built that business based on part-time experts. And now, exactly what you said, with VAs and virtual assistants and, the whole gig economy, you can literally do the same thing virtually across the world. And it's so much more efficient. So for me, right, I have a team of VAs and I have one that's just like my expert social media person. I have
Mhm.
another one that's an expert on editing and doing my videos. I have another
Mhm.
one that's an expert on creating PDFs or workbooks and those different kinds of things. So I utilize experts, either projects or part time, because when you think about it, right, if you hire a generalist, which is where most people start, and it's not a bad thing in the beginning, But a generalist is like a handyman. They're good at a lot of things, but they're not an expert on anything. So if
Mhm.
I say to a generalist, I want you to go do this project, and it's not something that they're an expert at, it's going to take them longer, which means that it's going to slow down your speed and also cost you more because most likely it's going to take them longer. Whereas if
Mhm.
you hired an expert, that might be a little bit more money, but they're going to get it done so much quicker
Mhm.
and it's going to be done right. Right.
Mhm.
And so that is really the secret. Now, let me answer your question about pre revenue. When you're pre revenue, your focus needs to be just on getting that revenue.
Mhm.
So, this is what I'm working with a client right now, and she's pre revenue. And I'm like, okay, she created her product that she wants to sell. And I'm like, this is what you need to do. You need to go talk to every single person that you think is a good fit. And we put together what to say, how to pitch it, and how to make this happen and go do it for 90 days. At the end
Mhm.
of 90 days, we're going to look at her data and we're going to say, okay, how many people said yes? How many introductions did you get? How many referrals did you get? What did you learn? What landed better? Who's your ideal client? And then we're going to take that data and we're going to refine that for the next 90 days. But pre revenue, your focus needs to be on getting revenue.
Mhm.
Whereas so many entrepreneurs are focused on creating their product or service, and then they spend months, if not years, doing that. And then they get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm ready to sell it, but they've done no marketing.
Mhm.
And so now what happens is they're ready to sell it. A lot of them are out of money. They're
Mhm.
really dwindling. They're exhausted. And they're like, I need money and they don't have it.
Mhm.
You can pre-sell things nowadays. I mean, that's what Kickstarter and all of that is for, right? Like we're pre-selling things. We can do the
Mhm.
same thing with services and all of that. So,
Mhm.
does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's such an interesting the thing that also like that I really is resonating with me is just like getting over the fear of making the investment in those things, right? Like making the investment in a coach or making the investment in a VA or making the investment in those things and recognizing that it's actually going to help you to start generating that revenue when you're in that pre-revenue stage because it feels scary it because it's an expense, right? So you have to like reframe it in your mind that this is not an expense and it's an investment into the business. It's an investment that will help me to be generating that revenue. But when you're
Mhm.
pre-revenue, every single cent that you're spending feels like
Like every penny, right?
yeah.
So let me tell you a story that kind of blew my mind, but didn't shock me as much as I thought. So a couple weeks ago, I was the keynote for a business conference in Denver, Colorado. And at this conference, there was about 400 business owners and pretty much about 50-50 men and women, maybe a little bit more women. But I did my keynote, and what happened was, and I taught them the 4 pillars, is I got off stage and the men came up and was like, "I need to talk to you. I need you. I need to book you. Let's
Mhm.
talk this weekend before you leave." And if they couldn't find that time, they got a time on my calendar right there. Okay.
Mhm.
The women came up and said all weekend long, "Great job. You inspired me. You're amazing. So good." And I had a few conversations with women.
Mhm.
And what I really realized is the next week I got home, I went to a local meeting here and we were discussing it. And the man in the group said it's because men know one, they make decisions quicker, it's
Mhm.
proven. They also see she has what I wanna do, or she's been where I wanna be kinda
Mhm.
deal. So if I invest with her, I'm gonna get there quicker.
Mhm.
Whereas women have been programmed to figure it out yourself, care for others before yourself. So you're like, "Okay, should I make this investment or should I spend the money to put, like, my kid in camp?" Kinda
Mhm.
deal. And so we're constantly torn. And so my question to you would be more, is this a struggle for you because of the programming you've received your whole life? Or is it something that you have that is really like, I'm not sure this is the best investment for me right now. I have multiple things that I need to do, but that little, unintended case study really woke me up to how women and men are still being programmed so differently. Men are
Mhm.
taught to ask for help, delegate, whereas women are taught to figure it out, piece it together, multitask.
Mhm.
And it just really is still going on even today in the business world. And I'm seeing it so much more, especially in women.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that ties back into what you had said earlier. I think everyone to a certain extent is brainwashed though that to think that the harder you work, like if you work hard, then you'll get success kind of thing. But if that were really the case, then, every single mom working 3 jobs would be a millionaire, and that's really not the case, right? And so I think it's about, and I really agree with what you said about, you need to learn from the people like who have done what you want to do, right? Because clearly they know something that you don't, right? And so it's like, okay, you can either try to figure it out yourself. It's probably going to take like 5 to 10 times as long, or you can pay the money. Yes, it might seem a little bit scary to be putting that out there, right? Putting that investment out there to spend that money, but you're going to reach your goals 10 times faster. Right? And so it becomes, but you really have to like work through that fear of spending money, especially again when you're pre-revenue.
Well, and I have to say, I mean, back in 2006, when I signed on the line to buy that franchise, that was here in the US, right before the kind of bubble burst. And so
Mhm.
I had bought a condo, 100% financed. I had no money in the bank. And I was buying a franchise because I was basically like, well, if they taught all these people how to do it, then why can't I do it? So,
Mhm.
one, if you're going to invest, you should be betting on yourself versus, you know what I mean, anything else out there. So if that person can do it, then I can do it and I'm going all
Mhm.
in, right? So I'm
Mhm.
going to invest with them. Two, I saw it as an investment. They had a business plan in a box. They had taught others how to do it. They were having success. And so I was like, why wouldn't I pay the money to get
Mhm.
quicker, better, faster results? And I saw that exponentially in our
Mhm.
growth during 2009, 2010. The senior home care industry just exploded because of the baby boomers.
Mhm.
And literally every month we would go to this networking meeting and my salesperson and I would be like, "Oh, there's another new home care company. There's another new home
Mhm.
care company. There's
Mhm.
another new company." And none of them could keep our pace or even touch our revenue by 10
Mhm.
because they didn't have that business in a box that I had started with. They were
Mhm.
trying to figure it out on their own. And so we quickly and easily dominated our territory just because we had that advantage. People would actually sell against us, like, oh, we're not a franchise. Like, what's the big deal? Right? Who cares?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so really the whole investing thing is if you see someone who has a proven blueprint, a map, a roadmap, a business in a box, or whatever, and they've done what you wanted, it's not about, can I do it? It's more like if I follow what they tell me to do, then it should be a no brainer that I do it. But you have
Mhm.
to commit. And I think a lot of times it's not necessarily the money, it's the commitment. Am I willing
Mhm.
to do the work that it's going to
Mhm.
take? When I was buying a franchise, they put me through a rigorous interview process because they only wanted to spend their time with owners that were gonna do and execute the process because otherwise it was a waste of time, energy, and resources for them.
Mhm. Mhm. So what do you think, like, what are the key skills then for somebody who, like, wants to succeed? Like, for example, when you were going through the interview process, were they just looking for you to stick it out to the end, or do you think they were looking for key things? Or, like, for example, when you are working with clients, can you tell the difference between a client who will be successful versus a client who's not successful?
Yeah, one of the things they told me, it's kind of a funny story. They told me as they were granting me the franchise, they said, "We have one concern." And I was like, "Yes." And they were like, "We feel you're not competitive enough." And I'm like, "That is so interesting." And I think I'm a very competitive person, but I'm not outwardly competitive. And I
Mm,
actually think that gives me my competitive advantage
mhm,
because I've learned how to be competitive, um, but not so much that someone thinks that I'm a threat.
mhm.
And so that was the thing with them. But what I see in women and I mean, I will know whether someone.
Nope. Oh, sorry, we dropped you.
Oh,
You will know whether someone.
so you will know whether someone has it or not if they're willing to do the work and they're willing to do like what I said before. Like they're
Mhm,
not just searching for the next shiny object. Are they willing to go through all of the steps? And then are they willing to be consistent and keep going until they reach the result? And I'm
mhm,
not saying like the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But
mhm,
once you figure out what works, keep doing that until you hit where you
mhm,
need to go.
mhm,
A lot of entrepreneurs, they get bored with that. They're the visionaries.
mhm,
Those are the people that need to then get the results and then hire that executor so they can go be that visionary, right? And
mhm,
so that is so important is you have to be able to stick to it, like have that stick to itedness
mhm,
long enough to see success.
mhm,
Success doesn't happen overnight. I think with the explosion in the coaching industry, so many people think that, okay, I'm just going to quit my job and be a coach and I'm going to have all this, money and those different kinds of
mhm,
things. And I mean, I had an honest conversation with a woman the other day and I'm like, it could take you 2 years to
mhm,
replace your income. Do you
mhm,
have 2 years worth of saving? I think the old rule was, have 6 months of saving.
mhm.
Now, I think it's more 2 years because
Yeah.
there's just so many options out there.
Mhm,
And you lose focus, you go off on other paths. And so you're getting bogged down with all of this stuff that takes you off the path. Whereas if you just stuck to it, you'd have quicker, better, faster results.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and especially I think with we earlier you were talking about the tech stack, and especially with AI, it's very easy to get distracted with like shiny object syndrome, and it's like, "Oh, this is cool," but like, okay, it might be cool, but is it actually useful in your business and building the business, or is it just something cool and fun to do? So that I think is one of the negative things about AI. I think there's so much power in it. And I think you have to choose when and where to use it wisely because at the end of the day, I also think that people want that one on one interaction, right? But um, what okay, so what you were talking about how you working only about 16 hours a week. And so I want to know in terms of the system that you've designed around your business, what are the things that you do that are like 100% needs to be Sailyn and Sailyn only versus the things that you can outsource or delegate?
Yeah. So, when you really think about working 16 hours a week, it should be focused majority of the time on those strategic leader things. What are the
Mhm.
things that only you can decide, right?
Mhm.
So no matter where you are in revenue or growth or whatever, when you think about the things that light you up, like what do
Mm-hmm.
you absolutely love to do? Not what you like to do, but what you absolutely love to do, right? And then what are the things that you are extremely good at? Not the things you can do, right? We're not the handyman again. We're not a jack of all trades. But what are the things that only you can do? So for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like, what's that vision of where we're going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I see us in 90 days, 6 months, a year? Those are the things you should be working on. So inside of my programs, we talk about not necessarily time blocking, but more putting your time into categories where it's like, okay, this is like strategic leader time where we're working on that vision, that big picture of the business. And then here's revenue focused activities. And then here is, the time block, which is that operator kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
maybe client delivery, those different kinds of things. And then what is the other stuff that still needs to get done because you're just not at the level to delegate it yet?
Uh-huh.
But if you don't have that time to really assess your business, and this is why I teach women to do a quarterly planning for profit. Like I host a workshop called Planning for Profit every single quarter to
Mm-hmm.
look at the next 90 days of where you're going. You're just going to wake up and a year is going to have gone by and you're going to be like, what did I do with my time?
Mm-hmm.
And so you really need to look at the things that you love. When I was getting ready to buy my franchise, they made me reach out to 5 owners. And then the owner of the Rhode Island office said to me, my biggest piece of advice is delegate everything that you're not good at and that you don't want to do. And I took
Mm-hmm.
that to heart and I literally delegated everything that I possibly could,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I was able to get in there. And it got to the point where once I set myself free in that business, that I was working, running it remotely. And I would come back to the office because I felt I should.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say to me, "Why are you here? We don't even need you." And that is like a blow to your ego. You have to
Mm-hmm.
get used to that. Um, but it was basically you created this machine and we're here executing it. We need you in that visionary role to
Mm-hmm.
map what's next for us, like where are we going next? So, yes, we're doing all of those consistent things, but maybe something is changing with legislation or the industry or the world. And it's like, okay, how are we going to respond for that? How are we going to change? Those are the things that essentially that strategic leader should be doing and not the, tiny details in every single day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I have a question then about because you are coaching women how to do this. So presumably women come to speak to you, right? And so that's not something that can be outsourced or delegated. So when you're building a brand, like for example, I'm building a personal brand around the Savvy brand, right? And so when people come to me and they want to speak with Samantha Savvy and you can't outsource that, how do you scale that kind of business, right? It's like scale a coaching business is a business where people go to get coached by you. But how do you scale that so that eventually, because every business should be sellable at some point, right? How do you scale something that is kind of revolving around that one key person of influence within that business and package it so that you eventually can sell it off?
Oh my gosh, this is my love language. Let's talk.
Okay.
So, um, so here's the thing, right? That is exactly what 99.9% of coaches think, right? And
Mhm.
this is why in the first pillar structure, we
Mhm.
create your signature framework and service.
Mhm.
Because essentially, I was just having a conversation with a client. You're not selling you, you're selling your framework. People
Mm.
don't necessarily want you, they want your process, right?
Mhm.
But you have attached your process to yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so when you make the mindset switch that you're selling a process, a method, a blueprint, a framework, whatever it is, you're essentially selling them that process, however many steps it is. And honestly, they don't care whether you teach it or whether someone else teaches it, they just want the blueprint,
Mhm.
right? And so when you think about being a coach, you've created this system process framework, right? It works, it has results as long as the person who's delivering it, whether that be a human or a piece of technology like videos, AI, whatever kind of
Mhm.
deal, as long as they can get what they need along their journey of integrating it into their business, you don't have to be there. And
Mhm.
this is what I am in the process of right now in my business. I have my frameworks, I have my
Mhm.
system. And now what I'm doing is I'm slowly removing myself from how this happens. So let me give you an example. In September, I had my best month ever. And I
Mhm.
said to myself, if I continue at this pace, I will not be able to handle it. How am I going to
Mhm.
fix this? So I put up the brakes on my marketing for 2 weeks. I
Mhm.
sat down with ChatGPT and I created 5 custom GPTs. I took
Mhm.
all of my frameworks and I turned them into AI experts in their zone of genius, right?
Mhm.
So we have Patty and Stella and Clara and Trixie. And all of them, when you go through my program, you basically input everything. You're getting my brain, my frameworks, my coaching, everything whenever you want to work. You're not
Mhm.
waiting on me. And I did that for 2 weeks. I put my foot back on the gas. I deployed them to the clients I already had, added them to the new clients coming in, and they love them. The
Mhm.
feedback is so good because now they're getting my brain on their time frame. They're not waiting for me. They're not waiting for our weekly call, right?
Uh-huh.
And so these are the kind of things that you need to think, okay, what does success look like for me? That's step one, right?
Uh-huh.
What do I want to do long term? And then how do I scale? I was talking to a career coach the other day and she's going to hit 1 million this year. And she was like, she wants to start speaking. And I was like, okay, well, how are you going to like travel the country and speak and still deliver your services? And she's like, well, I don't know. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, this is where we need to scale your system and
Mhm.
not you, right?
Mhm.
Because essentially, when you think about the franchise I built, sure, the owner was still involved, right? But not in the doing. He had a team of doers.
Mhm.
He had created a system and we all bought his system. He was the strategic leader saying, where is the senior home care industry going? What are we doing? Where are we aligning? What collaborations are we doing? All of those kinds of things. And then he had a team of people who were executing the system
Mhm.
to the franchisees who were implementing them in their own business and territory. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, no, it's really great. The thing that I really struggle with, as a business owner and as someone who's getting a business, putting it together is it's so easy to get distracted by the day-to-day stuff, right? And so, like, creating content, like, I was just filming some content earlier today. So it's so easy to get distracted by the day-to-day stuff that, like, I no one else can video me but me, right? So I still have to be the one to go about doing that. So getting distracted by that, getting distracted by emails, getting distracted by those kinds of things, right? And so then what it's hard to, like, until you have those systems in place, it's you doing a lot of like working, it's like working in the business versus on the business, right? Like doing the day-to-day stuff versus being the visionary, right? And setting that up. And so one of the things that I really struggle with, and maybe people can relate, is how do you, like, just the process of setting those systems up and taking the time to actually do it when you feel like you have all of this other, like, day-to-day stuff that you have to manage. Even if you have a team, like, I have a team of people who do stuff for me, but then there's still some distractions that happen. So it's about, like, how do you actually go about setting up those systems so that you finally feel like you can take the step back, right? It's
Yeah.
overwhelming, I guess. I feel overwhelmed a lot of the time, as I know, like, logically, my logic brain knows, like, okay, you need systems. But my non logic brain is like, I don't know where to start.
Yep. Exactly. And so, one of the things that I have my clients do is that it's a time study in the beginning, right? And it's
Mhm.
the old fashioned, what'd you do all day? And, I had a woman last year do it. And I mean, her day was jam packed. She worked a full time job. She was building this business on the side. And I was like, I can see 8 hours right here where you're giving your time to someone else, right?
Mhm.
And so she backed off on those 8 hours. It was really hard for her. But I followed up with her about 6 to 9 months later, and she's like, Dylan, I built my business in those 8 hours.
Mhm.
And so, one, you have to get honest with
Mhm.
where you're spending your time, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at, is my time best spent here? And then when you find those things that are weighing you down, that you're like, okay, it needs to get done. I need to be involved, but how can I take this from taking me, an hour a week to 30 minutes a week or even
Mhm.
45 minutes a week?
Mhm.
That's when we look at technology or tools or batching or whatever it is to make it better. So, for instance, I'm jumping more and more and more into Claude lately
Mhm.
and setting up skills and projects and artifacts and all of those different kinds of
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
And so, one of the things that I always did was after a sales call, I'd be like, okay, Chat GPT, like, I just had a sales call with so and this is what I want you to send them. Well, now I have a Claude skill set up that literally I get off the call and I say, go, write the skill, go do the skill with Samantha. It goes, it gets the recording, it reads it, it writes the email, it does
Mhm.
everything, it puts it in my draft folder. All I have to do is just read it one
Mhm.
minute and it sends it right out, right? And
Mhm.
so when you look at the things that you can do, what are those things that are costing you
Mhm.
time, money, and energy,
Mhm.
right? So I would look at where you're spending your time first.
Mhm.
Then is it something that absolutely needs to get done by you? And if it does, okay, great. How can we make it more smooth, efficient, whatever it is? And then implement the system on that and just
Mhm.
say, this has to get done, right? Like I have to
Mhm.
slow down to speed up. I had to
Mhm.
slow down for those 2 weeks in October to get those AI tools out so I
Mhm.
could speed up and then have my best month ever in November and December,
Mhm.
because otherwise I knew I couldn't keep going at that pace. I would basically hit my ceiling.
Mhm. Mhm. What did you do then? Because what you just said about because I'm using mostly Claude. I actually just ended my Chat GPT subscription because I wasn't using it anymore, and so I basically all the GPTs that I had made, I transferred over into projects, which you can essentially make them do the same thing. But I have noticed that people are talking about, like, skills. Like, so I know that you're not, like, an AI expert or an AI coach or whatever, but, like, did you take a 2-week period to just, like, learn Claude and then how to incorporate it into your business? Or how do you know, like, what is worth your time to learn versus not worth your time to learn? Because this sounds
Mhm.
intriguing to me, what you just said about, the Claude skills and then drafting the emails and sending them.
So one of the things I teach women is no one wants to put a time block on their calendar that says create a system, right? Like
Yeah.
that's stick a fork in my eye, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's just face it, if it's not something that's a priority, then it's just you're gonna be like, oh, I don't have time to do that next week. I'll move it to next week, right? And then it
Mhm.
never happens. So
Mhm.
one of the things I teach women is it's like, okay, you need a system on this, right? So I knew as I was moving from ChatGPT into Claude that I needed to get this sales email follow-up process set.
Mhm.
And so I literally set this up last week. I
Uh-huh.
sat down with Claude. I opened up skills. It said create a skill with Claude. And I was like, this is the process that I'm following. I
Mhm.
was like, tell me what we need to do to make this happen. Probably took me an extra 15 minutes. But then I've now had sales calls since then. And it's like, done, done, done.
Mhm.
So that I did it in the moment, right?
Mhm.
I didn't schedule a time on my calendar, but I basically said, I have to do this. You know what I mean? How can I get Claude to really help me? I
Mhm.
took the extra 15 minutes and I developed it, went back and forth, like had a conversation just
Mhm.
like I would with a human. If I was saying
Mhm.
to someone, how do we make this happen? And then in the end, I was like, okay, great. I always ask it, do you have any recommendations? Like, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you
Mhm.
would recommend to make it better? It was
Mhm.
like, great, you need a couple tweaks. Okay, done. Here you
Mhm.
go. And now
Mhm.
it's built,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you literally have to, I think, build it at that moment when it's
Mhm.
fresh in your memory. Either you're doing it yourself or whatever, because I knew my process, but
Mhm.
I knew it could be more efficient. And so
Mhm.
that's what I did. And I
Mhm.
just kept it simple, and I'll do the next one. So now I'm doing the same thing. I'm expanding. When I do a coaching call with a client, I'm like, you know what? Instead of them having to take notes and take the Fathom summary and all of that, I'm like, let's create an email that basically gives them their action plan for the next 2
Uh-huh.
weeks.
Uh-huh.
So that was the next thing I built. And
Uh-huh.
then that was done.
Uh-huh.
And so really I do not sit down and say like, let me build something, let me learn something. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
here's a need, it needs to be done, not by me necessarily. How can we get this done?
Mhm. Okay. How did you know? Okay, and again, I know that this is not an AI podcast, but how did you know, like, to use a skill versus a project?
Ooh, good question. So I am in a program with a woman who teaches LinkedIn marketing, and
Uh-huh.
she just did a training on how to use Claude better for your LinkedIn marketing.
Mhm.
And so I watched that and created mine kind of like at the same time. I was like, okay, great. I also ask AI, right? So
Yeah.
when I go into AI, I'm like, listen, this is what I want to do. Do I do, code? Do I do a skill, a project? And what am I doing here? Right.
Uh-huh.
And it will tell you.
Uh-huh.
If you treat AI like a human, I find you get better results.
Mhm.
Like it's like, okay, what should I do? It would be the
Mhm.
same thing if you sat down with an AI expert and they did an assessment for you. They
Mhm.
would tell you that, but why not just have the same conversation with Claude?
Yeah. Yeah. I have gone through this down this rabbit hole where I can't remember what I was trying to do, but I was talking to Chat GPT and I'm like, because the AI has a tendency to want to please you, right? And make you happy. And so it just says yes to everything. And so I was like, does Chat GPT have this capability? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And so then it was like telling me like all the places to go and all the steps. And I'm like, yeah, that button doesn't exist. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, and I'm like, you're telling me things that are wrong about your own operating system just because you want to
Mhm.
make me happy. So sometimes you go down the rabbit hole and waste like an hour of your time and you're like, okay, that was for nothing.
Yep. And that does happen, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, that's why I don't think humans will ever, you know what I mean, not be needed,
Yeah.
is because, I mean, essentially you need a human to tell AI what to do and,
Mhm.
keep an eye on it as of
Yeah.
today, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll see how it evolves.
Mhm.
In the future, we might have a team of AI, agents that actually, watch your other,
Mhm.
AI.
Yeah.
Um, but, those are the kind of things where you kind of have to say, like, okay, I haven't gotten an answer in 10 minutes, 15
Mhm.
minutes. And really kind of say, like, one, is this where I should be spending my time right now?
Mhm.
And then two, how much time am I spending that I could be doing revenue producing
Mhm.
activity? Whereas if I reached out to an AI expert and said, can I pay you for an hour of your time where you can teach me, do it for me, whatever it is,
Mhm. Mhm.
those are the kind of things where you step into that strategic leader role and
Mhm.
you're thinking, it has to get done. How do I make it happen?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think that goes hand in hand with building the systems, right? So if we're, whether you're delegating the system to AI versus delegating the system to a human, right? And how much time? Like I took a whole AI course. At the end of the day, like yes, I am incorporating AI into my business, but at the same time, it's also like how much of this do I actually need to know how to do myself versus it's good that I have the concept, I have the conceptual awareness that this can be done, and now I'm going to delegate that task to somebody else because they have the wherewithal to do it.
Exactly. And I
Mhm.
don't believe that. I mean, there's so many offers nowadays done for you. And I've seen that
Mhm.
really backfire on a lot of entrepreneurs because, again, someone leaves and they don't know how to use what they've built and then they're
Mhm.
stuck. Um, but I don't also believe that you should know everything about everything before
Mhm.
you delegate it. There's that sweet spot, exactly
Yeah.
what you said. I should understand the overall concept and what it's going to take so you can
Mhm.
manage people. So when the person says to you, it's going to take me 6 hours, and you're like, really? I think it should take you three.
Mhm.
That you're
Mhm.
not, you know what I mean, getting taken or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I do think that there should be awareness of the concept and how it should be done and not necessarily, um, have someone do everything from A to Z and have no idea.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been a really amazing conversation. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add or feel that we like missed in discussions or something you're really passionate about that you
You
wanted to
know,
share with people?
that's such a great question. So here's what I'll leave you with is
Mhm.
here's what I know for a fact, right?
Mhm.
So I owned a senior home care business for 10 years. And I can
Mhm.
tell you firsthand, having worked with seniors at the end of their life, that
Mhm.
no one ever said to me, I wish I had worked more. They
Mhm.
all expressed their regrets to me. I wish I had a better relationship with my spouse. I wish my kids were here caring for me, versus you. I wish I had
Mhm.
taken that trip. I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish. So
Mhm.
the reason we go into business is to have more time, money, freedom, energy, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Make sure that you stay focused on that and continually evaluate where you're spending your time, energy, and money. Because
Mhm.
if you just focus on making more money, you're most likely not going to build a business that's going to allow you to have that time freedom and that love for the business that you truly went into business for, right? You'd
Mm.
want to live a life where your business is supporting your life and not, you know what I mean, your life is supporting your business. So
Mhm.
that's my biggest piece of advice is to really take stock at minimum every 90 days. Where am I? Where am I going? Where do I need to shift for the next
Mhm.
90 days in order to live your one epic life? Because you only get one.
I love that, honestly. And that's truly the reason that we go into business is so that we can design. I believe that business and entrepreneurship is a life design, right? It's how do we design a life that we actually want to live, that we are excited about living versus a life where we're just going through the motions. Hmm.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, Sailynn, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you and your time and this really, really amazing conversation that we had. So, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions about anything that we talked about, they can reach out to me on any social media at Sailynn Doyle,
Yes.
pretty much
And
anywhere.
your website as well, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
the website is www.passionpurposeposture.com.
Okay. And we will make sure to include all of those links in the show notes. So, thank you again, Sailynn. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
DJ Savvy.